Now it's time for The World's Gone Mad. Well, it's only 2 weeks, as I said, since Donald Trump officially became President of the United States, but it seems plenty of Americans still can't quite cope and are struggling with those MAGA meltdown moments.
Everything's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's okay.
Everything's okay, everything's okay. Even though Trump has always been popular with and supportive of the LGBT movement, his theme song is the Village People's gay anthem YMCA, after all, many still cannot cope.
Surrounded by MAGA, including my in-laws. And I'm like, what? And you want to pretend that you didn't vote for him and that I am gay and that what's happening isn't just affecting me, but millions of others, and you just want to sweep that under the rug?
Perhaps she was getting agitated because Trump's new Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, announced this week that the US Army will no longer be celebrating Pride Month. That's Gay Pride Month. Indeed, it's not only the US Army, all around the world, wokeness is now in retreat and not before time. Gay rights have long been accepted throughout the West. There is no longer any need for the marches and flags, which have become more often than not simply overt exhibitionism, and certainly the extremist gay transgender ideology does not belong in our schools, as Trump has now made clear. Oh dear, down comes the flag off the school wall. Incidentally, somebody might want to tell Woolworths here in Australia that we have had enough of this sort of overt LGBT nonsense here too. Seriously, as I showed you last week, Woolies could barely bring themselves to celebrate Australia Day, but they have to festoon their shops with the rainbow transgender flag. Speaking of MAGA meltdowns, the transgender aspect of the rainbow alphabet, on the basis of their previous form, the T's of LGBT fame are likely to be a little teed off.
I have a trans daughter. There are threats against her life. Just her existence as a human being. There are people that want to annihilate her and people like her.
And that was back in 2022, before Trump's executive order claiming there are only two genders. Imagine what the reaction would be now. In case you didn't recognize her, that was, of course, famous Hollywood comedy actress from the 1980s, Jamie Lee Curtis, seen here in the hit comedy True Lies, clearly struggling with her own gender identity. Maybe Jamie's read too many Hollywood film scripts because she seems to think that armies of fascists are running around Beverly Hills exterminating transgender people or something like that.
As if we haven't learned from fascism, like we haven't learned what the result of that is. The extermination of human beings. That is terrifying. So, Jamie Lee Curtis is scared.
And not only Jamie Lee Curtis, Annette Bening, Charlize Theron, Cher, Sigourney Weaver, Ali Sheedy, and our very own Naomi Watts all have trans or non-binary kids. Must be something in the Beverly Hills bottled water. Sex and the City star Cynthia Nixon has way more than her fair share.
I am here today as the mother of a proud trans man. I am here today as the aunt of a proud trans man. My best friend's kid is trans, and my kid's best friend is trans. My trans kid had his top surgery at NYU a number of years ago. Wow.
I wonder how she keeps up with them all. Elsewhere, LGBT activists appear to be channeling Rosa Parks and are more concerned about being thrown off the bus.
They will try to separate us. They will kick the trans people off the bus. They're kicking the indigenous people off the bus. They're kicking our intersex community off the bus. Our Two-Sphere Plus family, they're kicking them off the bus. They just want a membership LGBT bus. Well, guess what, babe? That LGBT bus, it's not gonna have any gas. It won't have any tires. Y'all not going any far. Because we are a community.
And before we finish a look at this mad world, we can't go past this year's Grammys. Look at this on the red carpet.
DEI is not a threat, it's a gift.
And I just want to say tonight that trans people are not invisible.
No, indeed. Trans people and indeed most Hollywood people are certainly not invisible. Mind you, not everybody is crazy to cut snake, even in California. Here's the brilliant conservative rapper Joy Villa.
I think the ones that should be deported are being deported. To be honest, I'm a Latina. My family came from this country to this country legally. And I love to see rapists, human traffickers deported. I don't want to see them here. I want us to be free for all colors, for all people. Like, that's what makes America great again.
Can't say fairer than that. Looks like there are indeed some pockets of sanity, even in Hollywood. Joining us now is Natalie Winters, co-host of Steve Bannon's War Room and our very own White House correspondent. Natalie, great to see you. What an amazing time you must be having there in the press room. It's unbelievable. It's incredible. But listen, I wanted to show you, I don't know about you, I remember Sesame Street as a kid, but it certainly didn't, and I'm sure you do, didn't look much like this, but apparently the American government's been paying for this. Have a quick look.
انتظري يا شمس أنا أمسك بالمكنسة.
So, Natalie, that's just one of the sillier things, but the obscene waste of taxpayers' money. Tell us about it. How are Americans absolutely stunned by what has been revealed about USAID?
To be fair, I think Iraqi Sesame Street's probably better than most of what we saw going on at the Grammys. But this has really been, I think, not just a Renaissance type week, but a revolutionary week for the American people. I think, frankly, confirming something that we've all known, which is that USAID and a lot of these foreign granting agencies, that their mission to so-called, advance the United States footprint or soft power abroad is really just a racket. It's corruption. It's how this town, this swamp, has gotten so rich off of basically untraceable, untrackable, and unauditable aid for just really asinine projects like I think you just witnessed and highlighted there. But I think there's also something more nefarious that this week has shown us, which is that part of the design of these agencies, most, I think, notably USAID, that's the Agency for International Development, that it's a systemic problem whereby they don't want the transparency, they don't want the audits, they don't want the American people to actually know what they're subsidizing with their taxpayer dollars. And certainly a lot of it fits into the paradigm of the waste, fraud, and abuse like you're highlighting. But there's also a more nefarious angle too, where we were talking about hundreds of millions of dollars being weaponized, not just in the gender culture war stuff to turn your kids trans, probably in Australia too, but really in the censorship industrial complex. There's a lot, it's a nest of vipers, right? There's a lot of issues here.
Now, great news. I, on this show, and I know you guys have long been talking about how ridiculous and wrong, basically wrong it was that men could play in girls' and women's sports by simply identifying. I've been fighting this fight for a long time. Many women in Australia, very brave women, have stood up against the woke lunacy to fight against us and had lots of problems in doing so. Donald Trump's come to the rescue again, and here he was in the White House. I'll play a little bit of the clip, Natalie, of him yesterday, basically saying, that's it, no more men in women's sports. Have a look.
Female athletes have been forced onto the front lines, and men claiming to be girls have stolen more than 3,500 victories. That's a lot. And invaded more than 11,000 competitions designed for women.
And then, Natalie, wonderful pictures of Trump surrounded by all these young girls and athletes, all rushing forward to sit around him as he signed, and he did a beautiful signature. He called it a number 10. Very funny stuff. But what was your take on it? And do the women of America understand how critical this has been?
Yeah, I was honored to be there that day. I saw all the cute young girls dressed up in their fun outfits, just oozing with happiness and pride and joy that President Trump really wasn't doing anything all that radical, right? Just restoring common sense to the world and to women's sports. I think it represents him actually putting the nuclear family first, the idea that biological women are women and shouldn't have to compete or get beat up by men in whatever sport they may be choosing to play. But I think that there's a lot of excitement over this issue. And here in the United States, when you talk about the culture wars, when you talk about what you've really seen, I think, buttress and be behind the shift between a lot of people who used to call themselves Democrats, but then became sort of disaffected with just the pure sheer madness and radicalness of the Democratic Party. A lot of the issues that sort of catalyzed that shift go back to issues like men and women's sports, like the radical indoctrination in schools. So it's a very salient issue for Republicans politically, and the polls that continue to come out, the data shows that it's only growing in terms of, I think, both importance and popularity, but just from the sense of what is correct and ethical and moral, and I think important to uphold Western societal, civilizational values, the idea that gender and gender roles and traditionalism and the nuclear family matters. It's a very strong and important day for that. Of course, we need the Senate, we need Congress to do their job and make this so this isn't just an executive order that the next radical Biden-esque president could just overturn with a stroke of a pen. But they're really being pushed hard to do that, and I think that they will.
And I don't think they would dare. And as I said, Natalie, here in Australia, we've had wonderful female politicians who've lost their jobs and so on and been threatened because they took this same stance. So it's a great news for women all around the world, and well done on Donald Trump. Just very quickly, Natalie, the danger of not having, of saying something on in front of a TV camera without actually having read what you're saying. Here's Ilhan Omar.
The last time the Alien Enemies Act was invoked, it was used to detain and deport German, Japanese, Italian immigrants during World War XI. Oh, II. Sorry.
I guess we all make mistakes, Natalie. What did you make of that?
I mean, to be fair, that's probably not the dumbest thing that she said. I think
well
that's
done.
Probably on par. I wouldn't expect much better. But that shows these people don't understand geopolitical or world affairs, or frankly, history for that matter. That's pretty basic. I think some of the girls that were standing next to President Trump watching him sign that executive order could probably have read that script better than her. But remember, she was also on the steps of USAID demanding that it get, reinstated and funded. So I wouldn't take her word for anything.
Well, we might chat about her more at a later date. Natalie, keep up that great work in the White House there. You must be having the absolute time of your life. So jealous, and keep on the brilliant work you're doing there.